All right. Welcome, everybody, to Ready Chapter One's elevator pitch webinar. I am Sarah McGuire. I'm so excited to have you here. I'm also a little bit nervous because last time I did this, I managed to, one, kick myself out of the webinar for like 30 seconds. And then two, I think I muted myself randomly multiple times. So I'm just going to assume that, anything other than that is going to be an improvement. But we are super glad to have you here. So, what I'm going to ask is, if you're here and if you're ready to go, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and comment with where you're from and what you write. So I know, right, William? Like it was kind of sad. Um, a friend and I had commented that if somebody had been having an adult beverage every time I made a mistake, they probably wouldn't have been able to type straight. But we're going to move on from that. So, what I want to do is I want to welcome everyone to our elevator pitch workshop. We did have a logline workshop earlier, and the emphasis of a logline is to be able to describe your novel in a single line. And with this, we're kind of allowing ourselves to stretch out a little bit more room as you're discussing your story. So good to see everybody. Thank you all. Hey, James. Hey, Lindsay. So I'm going to go ahead and jump in. A quick overview of what we are hoping to do in this. So far, so good. Hey, Gina. Hey, Denise. Hey, JC and Leslie. So our goal today is to help you write an elevator pitch. We also want to give you feedback on your elevator pitch, and we want to give away a Novel Academy slot. So Novel Academy is our program that's starting up next week that takes people from the idea of a story all the way through being able to talk about it and writing it and then sending it out. So, but we're just going to start right now with talking about your story. So let's do this. Um, and I will admit from the very beginning, I was not that person who knew how to talk about my story. Those of you who've read the emails and would remember that I had this pattern down when I went to a conference where if someone asked me what my story was, I would be like, it's a middle grade fairy tale retelling. And what is it that you write? Because I would rather have somebody not know what I was writing than to describe it poorly. So this is something that I've grown into as we go. So here's why an elevator pitch is important. It helps you talk about your story. It helps you hone in on what makes your story unique. It helps you notice any weaknesses in a story. I actually revised an entire novel based on the pitch that I put in a query. And it's really important because it helps you remember what you value as you draft and revise. So, whether you are getting ready to write a story or whether you are ready to put something in a query and send this out, we hope to make sure this is something for you. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to list a few, elevator pitches for books that you know. And so let's go ahead and start with Charlotte's Web. So, an affectionate, sometimes bashful pig named Wilbur befriends a spider named Charlotte, who lives in the rafters above his pen. Then Wilbur learns the destiny that befalls all those of the porcine persuasion. Determined to save her friend, Charlotte sets out to convince the farmer and surrounding community that Wilbur is no ordinary animal and should be saved. And then we're going to move on to something entirely different. This is the pitch for Wicked, a book by Gregory Maguire. And we're hearing a lot about it, of course, because we're dealing with a Broadway musical. So, years before Dorothy and her dog crash landed, another little girl makes her presence known in Oz. This girl, Elphaba, is born with emerald green skin. But Elphaba's Oz is no utopia. The wizard's secret police are everywhere. Animals, those creatures with voices, souls, and minds, are threatened with exile. Young Elphaba, green and wild and misunderstood, is determined to protect the animals, even if it means combating the mysterious wizard, even if it means risking her single chance at romance. And on behalf of my sister, who 15 years ago fell in love with a musical and went out and read the book, just be aware that they are two very different creatures. I believe we have another generation of people who are slightly traumatized by the amazing novel. So I'm just going to throw that out there. Both are amazing, but the novel is not what you would be expecting based solely on the Broadway musical. Okay. Next up, we have Jurassic Park, the novel. So, an astonishing technique for recovering and cloning dinosaur DNA has been discovered. Now, humankind's most thrilling fantasies have come true. Creatures extinct for eons roam Jurassic Park with their awesome presence and profound mystery, and all the world can visit them for a price until something goes wrong. And I'm also going to include what we have as the Jurassic Park movie, because what's interesting is that the novel had this almost clinical approach, and you see that in its elevator pitch. It's removed. We're talking almost about the survival of humanity as opposed to, and frankly, the stupidity of humanity. And then we're looking at Jurassic Park, the movie. Millionaire John Hammond has created the ultimate theme park attraction, live genetically engineered dinosaurs. Scientists Dr. Alan Grant, Dr. Ellie Sattler, and Dr. Ian McComb are among the guests for a test weekend that turns into a fight for survival when the beasts escape from captivity. So again, you'll notice that in the movie version, we have an emphasis on the survival of very specific people who, and I took this from the back of one of the original DVDs, you had actually the actors' names in parentheses. So you can tell that they're not only just emphasizing the characters, but like, oh, this is Jeff Goldblum. You really want to watch this. Okay. So I want us to talk really quickly about what a standout elevator pitch includes. So they are unique and specific. We are talking about a little girl with a green face or a spider that decides it's going to save a pig. We're very specific things that you would not run into at any point in time. They're also unexpected. One of the things that's amazing about Wicked is we've switched the perspective of the story and we're rooting for the villain. With Jurassic Park, we're certainly not expecting to see dinosaurs walking the earth. And more importantly, and this is where I think elevator pitches are able to lean into this a little more than log lines, is that they really give you a sense of the story's voice and tone. So yes, a log line needs to reflect your personality as an author, the book's tone overall, but you don't have a ton of space for that. With an elevator pitch, and in this case, we're talking about something that's 2 to 3 sentences long, you have a sense to really give a tone of what your story is. And then, of course, you want to reel in readers. You want to have an agent or an editor or whoever picks up your book think that they don't ever want to step away from the story until they find out what happens. So while we're going to have general rules, while we're going to have formulas that help you get started in this, the main thing that you're going for is, does this work? Does this make somebody who normally reads in this genre want to participate? Or participate, read the book, participate in your story. All right, so really quickly, just so we're clarified here, parts of an elevator pitch, you're really going to concentrate on the main character. This is the person, the main person that we're following through. And you saw in the Jurassic Park, we did have variations on that, but for the most part, we're going to be sticking to one character. You could potentially include the inciting event. So this is the moment when everything changes. This is when Dorothy steps into Oz. This is when somebody finds out that their partner is cheating on them, or something has been stolen, or they made a mistake, or any number of things. But the inciting incident is what sets your story off. Then we have goal. And the goal is pretty much just going to be, what does your character want to do? And in certain books, and especially towards the end, sometimes at the beginning, what the character thinks that they want to do turns out to be very different than what they end up doing, or a variation of it. So if we're talking about the Hunger Games, at the beginning, Katniss just wants to save her sister and survive. And by the end, it's not just survival, or even more than survival, it's her determination that she won't be controlled. So those are wonderful and amazing subtleties in a book. You're not going to concentrate on those in an elevator pitch. So when we are talking about the goal, you're typically going to be talking about the goal that your character has at the beginning of the story. Quickly moving through, because I want to get to feedback. Antagonist and opposing force. So antagonist could be the actual villain. It could also be something like a storm, or I say this again, this comes up a lot nowadays, a corporation, or the sort of structure that is holding somebody back. The Matrix. 6 consequences. What happens if everything goes south? What means is, what does your main character have to lose? Also, we have complications. So And again, these are things, so complications can be maybe you thought it was going to be this way, and then all of a sudden we're chasing this or doing this. Complications show up in some, not all, but they're really amazing if you can work them into your elevator pitch. And then again, I mentioned this before, but this is so important. You need to have a unique tone and voice. And that's not difficult because you are unique and your story is unique. But taking the time to sort of drill down into that and write an elevator pitch that reflects that, that's going to be important. All right. So here's what I'm going to have us do. Oh, one more thing, things your elevator pitch doesn't need. Typically, you don't need a whole lot of information about settings. Now, sometimes if you're dealing with fantasy or sci-fi, you need to be able to tell people exactly where the story is taking place, but you're not going to lean into it too much. Not going to have subplots. Typically, you won't have multiple names. I debated about whether to include the Jurassic Park movie about that, but typically you will have the name of your main character, and that's going to be preceded by quirky teacher, so and so, or young rebel, whatever. So you're going to have a couple descriptors in front of the name of your main character, and mainly you're including their name because you're going to be repeating them or referring to them several times. You end up kind of losing space if you include multiple characters. Um, Secondary characters, and this honestly, this last bullet point is just about me because my brain will go off to some random really cool fact that I learned or this random character that made me like love this whole story. This is not the place for the elevator pitch is not the place for it. So again, this is me more than anybody. All right. So what I'm going to have us do is you need to be opening hopefully have a piece of paper, open a Word document. I'm going to have you jot some things down. And so I want you just to jot down these different aspects of your story. And I want you to lean into what is unique. And in our logline webinar, I took a little bit more time about this, but what I want you to be thinking is if you had a room full of all the characters, all these sorts of things specific to your genre. So if you had a room for a conference room full of the main characters from a thriller genre or from romance. I want you to be looking for the things that would make your characters, your stakes, your villains, all of these different aspects of the stories stand out from all the other books that will be filling that shelf. Um, and then as you're putting these together, I want you to pay attention to juxtaposed elements. So much of what this is honestly such a powerful tool for creating interest. Pardon me, but when you can put two things together that don't belong, it is so intriguing and so powerful. And again, in an exercise where you are wanting to grab somebody's attention, putting things together that don't belong are going to be super powerful. So as you're writing all of these different things down, um, pay attention to the ones if you have a stakes that don't necessarily seem to go with a main character or a main character that seems really ill suited for the adventure at hand, for the goal at hand, those are going to be good things to sort of emphasize because they will pull somebody's attention. So here's what we're going to do. I am going to put this next slide up, which is just essentially an encore, because I want you to be able to see all the things that you're jotting down. I'm going to mute myself, and it is my hope that I will remember to unmute myself next time. But I'm going to give you guys, I'm going to give you guys 3 minutes just to jot down all these aspects of what you have. And then we'll come back and sort of start putting them together. So 3 minutes, I'll give you a 30-second warning when we're almost there, and I'm going to get myself muted. All right. So I hope I'm just checking to make sure that I am unmuted. I am, in fact, unmuted. So what I want to make sure is that you've jotted a few things down for all of these. Um, and I talk about this sometimes, but didn't end up mentioning it in this. We're getting ready to jump into some formulas and different ways that you can put this together. And those are really designed as just a starting off place for you. I had this one, editor that I worked with, and she said, "You're following your heartbeat. You're following your pulse. In that moment when you sort of hit something and it feels right to you, it doesn't mean that you won't need to revise or that it's absolutely perfect. But, as somebody who taught math, sometimes it's easy to get lost in your head a little bit, and it is also super good to pay attention to those things that just pull you together." Thank you. I appreciate the congrats on telling me that I did a fabulous job unmuting. I will take every little bit I can get. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to dive in because my goal is that you would have a rough draft of an elevator pitch by 8 o'clock. And I think we're on time for that. So let's keep moving. Okay. Few things to bear in mind. You may not need to use all of the story elements that I had you write down. There was a fabulous page on Loglines, a web page on Loglines, and it had loglines from 100 top movies, and it highlighted the different aspects in them. And while I think like 98% of them, somebody had done the numbers, bless them, 98% of them included main character and goal, depending on what worked for the story and what worked for the log line, or in this case, the elevator pitch, you may not be including anything. And like we said before, some things are redundant. So if you're telling people that Katniss Everdeen in Hunger Games decides that she is going to take her sister's place in a televised fight to the death, you don't need to tell people that the stakes are that she's going to live or die. Like that's pretty basic. James, I'll see if I can pull that up and send it. It was, ooh, hard to find. I might be able to include it in an email tomorrow, but I did. It was a great web resource. You may need to switch the order up with these. So I'm going to give you a formula, this, and this. Switch the order if you need to. You want readers intrigued, not confused. So you want them asking, essentially wanting to read more, not wondering what in the world is going on. And I would say avoid presenting your story as a series of events. That tends to be more of a potential failing for elevator pitches than log lines, but it's going to be easier to be like this, then this, then this, then this. And you want there to be a sense of because of this, then this, or they did this, but this happened. And again, that may be something that you have to revise out. I know that I do. And then if you're someone like me, just write it. That's honestly the best strategy. Just write it, which is what we're getting ready to do now. So here are two formulas that you can do. One for the more analytical, others for the more freewheeling. So elevator pitch formula number one, after inciting incidents, characters has to overcome an antagonist to accomplish goal in order to or else stakes. And you can stretch that into 2 or 3 sentences. Elevator pitch formula 2 is character involved in conflict must overcome complications, and this might be a series of things going wrong to thwart consequences. Again, for me, this is for the people who tend to be more freewheeling. You're filling in a lot of pieces, it comes naturally to you. Go for it. And so, what I've tried to do is give 2 different sort of formulas, one where you might feel like you need training wheels, one where you're doing this. Um, and so, here's what I'm going to ask you to do. I want you to write this, and potentially see if in the next 5 minutes you can write 1 or 2. So 1 or 2 different versions of this. So I was a little conflicted about whether I should give you like a 5-minute timer, but I think what I'm going to do is leave these up on the screen so that you can sort of look at these while you're going through. So I'm going to mute myself again with the deep hope that I actually unmute myself, and I will give like a 2-minute warning and then a 30-second warning when we're finished. So you have 5 minutes. Write a log line, and if you find one that you like, did I say log line? I did. If you find an elevator pitch that you like, please write another one. See how many, if they come easily to you, see how many you can write in the time. And just so that you know, The form that you'll be putting these into has a character limit of 375 characters with spaces. So just be aware as you're doing this. And that turns out to be like 65 shorter words, 50 something long ones. Okay, we're going to get started. All right, we're at our halfway point. There's just about 2 minutes more to go, or a little over 2 minutes to go. love it when that's playing. It kind of means it's an opportunity for me to actually unmute and not screw things up. All right. So I hope you've gotten at least a good start on at least one. What I'd like you to do really quickly before we jump ahead is I'm going to go ahead and drop this along the bottom there. So we have a page. This page is going to be where you're going to be able to upload your elevator pitches, and we're going to be picking randomly from the ones that are in there for us to do feedback. So it's not like if you get yours in first, you'll be the first to go. But have this page up, and it'll be a little bit easier to go to all the different places. So what I am going to have you do, or I'm going to move us along. So I had thought about having Fred give us an example of an elevator pitch and then decided against it because he's really good at it. And I myself am not so good at it. So I thought I would show you sort of the different iterations of what I'm doing. We're going to pull Fred in a little bit later to give some feedback as well, but we'll be working on that. So Gina, I just saw your question. So unfortunately, the only way I was able to limit it was 375 characters with spaces. And that's anywhere from between like 55 to 65, 68 words. I know that if it's the only thing in documents, like in a Word document, and you're looking at properties, you can see the character counts. And it'll tell you when you put it into the document to submit it, whether you have enough or not. All right. So I would say, again, shoot for between 55 and 65 words. Okay. So get ready to see what you shouldn't do with the different versions of mine. So my elevator pitch version 1. So 11-year-old math geek MC thought one of the best things about living at her stepmother's hotel was her great uncle. When he is kidnapped by a group of men in costumes, MC follows them and discovers there really is a 13th floor at the Woodson Hotel, and it's where fairy tale heroes and villains vacation. The only ransom the villains will accept is Cinderella's slipper. MC has 2 nights to find the slipper and save her uncle. So I hope this makes you feel better about anything that you've written. So this first one is literally a series of events. We are left, I would argue that anybody who's reading this would be confused rather than wanting to know what happens next. Why is somebody kidnapping her uncle? Do we really need to know how much she loves him? Why is a fairy tale person kidnapping her uncle? Why do they want Cinderella's slipper? Not super helpful. But what this did that was amazing is that, thank you, Rufus, you're very kind. What it did, I'd say 2 things that it did. Number 1 is it does include some juxtaposition of you've got a math geek and you've got fairy tale heroes and villains. But the second thing that it accomplished is that it existed. Because once I have something on paper, I can revise. So here's version 2. So 11-year-old math geek MC discovers her stepmom's hotel has a 13th floor and that it's where fairy tale characters vacation, including the villain that kidnapped her beloved uncle. When MC braves the 13th floor to find him, she learns 1, her uncle isn't all he seems, 2, neither is she, and 3, she has a day to steal Cinderella's slipper and save him. So this to me felt like I was getting a little closer, but it didn't seem to technically make sense about she's discovering this 13th floor and then somebody kidnapping her uncle. But I was trying to remove some of the confusion with, well, maybe he isn't all he seems, neither is she. We're kind of seeing that maybe this would explain the mysteries. So I felt closer, but not amazing. So, and to me, it certainly didn't have any of the voice or tone that the story itself would have. So, version 3. When a costume man kidnaps her beloved uncle, 11-year-old math geek MC follows him and discovers that her stepmother's hotel has a 13th floor and that it's where fairy tale characters vacation. Numbers and fairy tales don't always mix, but MC knows 3 things. Her uncle isn't all he seems, neither is she, and she has a day to steal Cinderella's slipper if she wants to save him. This one I was feeling happier with. And then I tried to paste it into the form and realized that it was a little long. So I literally went through and cut a few words. Final version. When a costumed man kidnaps her uncle, 11-year-old math geek MC follows him. She discovers that her stepmom's hotel has a 13th floor and that it's where fairy tale characters vacation. Math and fairy tales don't always mix, but MC knows three things. Her uncle isn't all he seems, neither is she, and she has a day to steal Cinderella's slipper if she wants to save him. You probably won't even notice the difference between these two. It was literally cutting a couple words, beloved, switching out math for numbers, whatever I needed to do to kind of drop that down a little bit. This feels closer to me to what I'd like, but it still needs, I would still be working on it. Um, but I hope you kind of understand or see some of the sort of things that were going through my head. This one, I feel like the later versions had a much better sense of the tone. Hopefully, they seem less like a series of events, and hopefully, it doesn't seem like a series of sort of unrelated events, where the first one was literally like this, then this, then this, then this. Hopefully, this is showing a little bit more causality between them. So for me, this would be something I would be happy with. I would still probably play with it. And honestly, when I go to a conference or something like that where I know I'll be talking about my story, I rehearse this because I'm not naturally good at it. So I would rehearse this, and this sounds weird. Folks are generally pretty kind if you're wanting to rehearse something. So you can totally walk into Starbucks, and if there isn't a line behind you, ask the barista if you can try something out on them. Tell them you're trying to make, come up with a pitch for a story. Just don't pitch your mom because she's always going to like what you have, typically. And teachers, students can be sometimes brutal, but sometimes nice too. So just take it with a grain of salt. All right, here's what I'm going to have us do. So if you go to that page, and I may actually see if I can go there too, and I'll show this to you real quick. You're going to go to the page. You are going to, and I'll share this guy. So here is the page that you were looking at right here. You have, let me take the banner off. You're going to be looking at the click here to submit your elevator pitch. Now, if your elevator pitch is a little bit long, you're going to trim a few words. But if it accepts it, you can go through. So there's not a place for your name. There's literally just a place for you to put your elevator pitch in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a timer for 2 minutes in case you have some revising that you would like to do, and for you to upload your elevator pitches. So 2 minutes starting now, and I'm only 5 minutes late. So I'm going to call it a win, and I'm going to mute myself.
Now I'm unmuted. Hey, everybody. This is Fred Kaler. I'm one of the co-founders here at Ready Chapter 1. And I just wanted to thank everybody for being here. I'm going to give a little bit of feedback on some of these elevator pitches. But I also just wanted to say really quickly that part of the reason we're doing this, and then, I mean, the reason why we're all out here tonight is, you know, Sarah and I both struggled and for 10 years plus to break into the publishing industry before either one of us got our first opportunity to have a book published. And it part of the reason that it takes so long is because you're trying to get feedback and you don't know where to get it, and you go to conferences and you do your pitches and you get that feedback, and then it's another 6 months before you have another opportunity to show off what you've built. So that's a lot of what's gone into the idea behind Ready Chapter 1 is we're just trying to build up an online place where you can go to get regular feedback on whatever it is you're working on, whether it's your pitch, whether it's your log line, whether it's your first chapters. So I hope that you find value in it. And I hope that things like this workshop are valuable for you in terms of understanding, you know, what's great about your pitch, and then, you know, what might still need a little bit of polish. So Sarah's getting some of these set up. Like I said, we're going to read them out loud, and I'm going to give you a little bit of feedback just based on my experience working in the publishing industry for the last 20 years.
I know, right? All right, so folks, I'm going to give you a few things to bear in mind. So when you're at this page, what I want you to do now is click here to critique the latest elevator pitch. And I'm going to show you really quickly what it looks like. All right. Okay, this is crucial. This is why I actually wanted you to see this. So what will happen is I'm going to keep putting different log lines into this. And if you don't refresh the page by clicking the little circle arrow thing, you will keep getting the old log line. So really quickly, I just want to go over what we're talking about with this, and feel free to chime in. So I understand what the story is about. That literally means, do I understand? Is this clear? I want to know what happens next. It's a nice way of asking, do you care? And all of this, especially this one, we're also doing this with an eye to, we want you to assume that this is a genre that you read in. So romance may not be your thing, but if we have a pitch coming up that includes romance, if this were your thing, would you want to know what happens next? The story feels fresh and unique. We just want to know, does this feel like something new? Because that's huge. You have to remember that if you're an agent or editor or reader, you've seen 300 versions in this genre. So is there something fresh and unique about it? And then just to gut level check, if you read this genre, would you want to read the book? All right. So Fred, I'm going to let you read this here, and then I'm going to do some magic with the feedback.
Okay. I think we had one person say they can't find the page.
Okay. And Gina, I did send you that, so I hope you're able to find it now. So hopefully that, if you can't find it, it's in the comments.
Got it.
All right.
Okay, so here we go. Pitch number 1. After a miniature spaceship lands in his goat's yard, middle schooler Benny Barnes has to help the aliens stop a bigger group of aliens from destroying the Earth. Oh, and he has to win the local baseball championship at the same time. Hey, all right.
Okay.
That's a great first one to start with.
Okay.
So sorry, am I just chattering while they vote?
So maybe we should give them 30 seconds to vote, and then
But
we can talk about it.
No, I want to talk about it.
We're gonna make Fred disappear for a sec.
So that's not working. All right, are we back? Did you cussed on air?
On webinar. Oh my gosh.
Okay. So we are looking at, hey, what looks like the aggregate of these scores, and I'm just going to give my personal opinion on this. Sarah, is there a way I can see it one more time?
Oh, I'm going to have you look right there.
There we go. Okay, so this does an awesome job of starting off with the inciting incident. Right, the miniature spaceship lands in his goat's yard. There's a couple of things that are very intriguing here. So the miniature spaceship makes me think, ooh, who are we dealing with? Who's going to come out of the spaceship? You didn't give us any clues there, and I like that because it creates this sense of mystery. And in his goat's yard, that's also an intriguing thing. So I'm like, okay, we've got two really intriguing sort of. I wouldn't say that these are quite yet a juxtaposition, but this miniature spaceship that I'm curious about. We've got a goat that kind of is the king of whatever yard this is. I'm curious about that. And then I know exactly who my character is. Benny Barnes. He's a middle schooler, and he's going to help some aliens stop this other group of aliens from destroying the Earth. Now, that's the one place where I'm like, okay, aliens coming to destroy the Earth. That's kind of a familiar sort of storyline from television, from film, from books. So if there was one place that I was looking for something a little more, it might be in kind of in that. So what is it that's unexpected about group A of the aliens or group B of the aliens, or what's unexpected about how they're going to destroy the Earth? I think if you can add one little piece there, you're just going to amp up the intrigue. And then, sorry, I need to look at the last little bit of it. Is it here?
Yep. Nope.
Nope.
It's here.
Okay. Oh, and he has to win the local baseball championship at the same time. That I think that adds so much heart to this story because when I think what you can eventually do with this is you can do the juxtaposition. You can give him the impossible choice of is he gonna focus on the baseball, which is a thing that every single kid kind of resonates with, or is he gonna focus on saving the Earth? And so I feel like you've got room to just kind of give that version of an impossible choice there that might just make this that much stronger.
All right, folks, I have an apology. I messed up. So our sixth column was supposed to be % of fives, and I did not treat my spreadsheet very well. So this one did have fives. The overall average was almost a 4. What I need you to do now is I need you to go and refresh the page, and we have a new
so you're going to refresh the page that you were voting on because there is now a new elevator pitch.
There we go. So I'm going to, let's see, remove this. And if we refresh this, boom, Fred's going to read it to you.
All right. Madonna, Celine Dion, Taylor Swift. These women reinvented themselves for musical glory. Now it's Charlie Chance's turn, but only if she can survive tabloid gossip between her and her manager.
All right. So we are going to give you 30 seconds to vote on this.
Muted the whole time. All right, and we're back, and we are unmuted this time. Sorry, folks.
Really quickly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and share the results as they come in, and then that way you can see it and Fred can talk about it.
Okay, so I like this opening, the Madonna, Celine Dion, Taylor Swift. That kind of gives us a frame for who it is, kind of the trajectory of this story. Where this is a story about fame. This is a story about music. This is a story about women working hard to find a path for themselves in what's probably a pretty seedy industry. I don't know it super well, but I'm only guessing. So I think what I'm maybe missing here at the beginning is what is the connection between Charlie and these other characters. So you've kind of framed it well with helping us understand this bigger picture of fame and glory. But where has Charlie been? How close is she? I feel like I'm missing a couple of details there. And I'm also missing, when we talked about the inciting incident, this is just a question that I think you can ask yourself. So what is the thing that sets off the tabloid gossip? Because if you kind of can frame it that way, then maybe we're just a little bit more emotionally invested in the outcome. So, I'm just going to make something up here. So if it was tabloid gossip between her and her manager, let's say that the tabloid gossip was that they were caught together in a hotel room or something like that. So I feel like if you can kind of give us that inciting incident and just strengthen our understanding of it, then we're gonna get there a little bit faster with this one. There's definitely huge amounts of room for conflict. There's huge amounts of room for drama, and so I see all that. But I think this one needs just a little bit more tweaking before it's gonna really hit the mark.
All right. So we should have, let me make sure this is set. We should have the next elevator pitch up. So I'm going to let Fred read it while we still have the mic up, and then you guys can begin voting on it. And it is, refresh the page.
All right. When Saskia Top inadvertently learns to slip in time, she does the obvious. She wins the lottery. Unfortunately, it's the changes she doesn't see that jeopardize her quest for love, and no amount of AI expertise in sorting trash can help navigate around her doppelganger. Okay. Oh, I can't talk about it yet. We got to give you 30 seconds.
All right. You guys should be working on that now.
All right, welcome back. So this one, all right, Saskia, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Excellent job with this inciting incident. So, and if you start to see the pattern, it's literally like this unexpected thing that happens sets off this chain of events that creates chaos for this person's expected life. So the obviously the life that Saskia wanted to have is going to be completely changed by this inadvertent ability to slip through time. And I love, okay, here's what I love. This is a great character study too, because Saskia does the obvious. She wins the lottery. And I don't even know that you need to say that she does the obvious, because I feel like a lot of people, that's what they would want to do. Like that would be their kind of darkest secret kind of thing. Like I will do something that is nefarious and go and rob a bank, or in this case, study the lottery number so I can go back or forward or back in time and win. And so I think that kind of like really tweaks on something inside me, because I'm like, ooh, if I could learn to slip through time, that's exactly what I would do. So I had this immediate connection to who she was. And then I love, unfortunately, it's the changes she doesn't see that jeopardize her quest for love. So like you've set up a romance in here. We don't know who that is. And I don't need to know who that is yet, because you've kind of given us that. And no amount of expertise in AI in sorting trash can help navigate around her doppelganger. I think that's the one part that left me just the teeniest bit confused. So no amount of AI expertise in sorting trash. I'm like, okay, I'm struggling just a little bit to understand what does that mean. What is AI expertise in sorting trash? But overall, this is a super strong pitch, and I think you've done an excellent job with it.
And folks, I forgot to share the numbers. So really quick, there you've got that there. All right. So what I'm going to have you do now is I am going to have you refresh. So go to the page that says refresh the page, and you should be having a new elevator pitch. Haha. All right. I'm going to let Fred read that, or have Fred read that, or whatever, and then we'll give you 30 seconds.
After disgraced Navy SEAL John Rockwell switches bodies with high school student Jake Walker in a vehicle accident, he must thwart the plans of Javier Mateo Reyes de la Cruz and his organization, the Immortal Exchanges, to reclaim Jake's body, to stay alive, and prevent Javier from taking over the world. Okay, this is... Oh, I can't say anything yet.
All right.
All right, are we on?
You are on.
Okay.
We are unmuted, and we're good to go. I'm going to let you talk about it, then really quickly you can talk about the chairs.
Okay. So this one, okay. I felt like this is the kind of novel that I want to pick up when I'm on a train, or I am at the beach, when I've just got like time to kill, and it feels almost, it's got this really almost John Wick vibe to it, or what's the one that was on Amazon Prime with the oh gosh, that was the Tom Clancy sort of... Nope, with the really big guy in it.
Reacher.
Yes, Jack Reacher. Like, I love that. Here's this very capable, and I'm gonna go with killer, because that's who I want John Rockwell to be. Like, he's someone who's capable of doing very difficult things and maybe very bad things. And then you've put him into this high school student, Jake Walker, and that is the juxtaposition. So that's the really, really exciting part about this, is you've juxtaposed this super capable person with a high school student. Now, I feel like you could strengthen that juxtaposition if you tell us just a teeny bit more about Jake Walker. And if it was me and I was writing this, I would make sure that you're taking, again, this super strong character and putting him into someone weak. So I don't know what that means for Jake. I don't know if that means he's, short and has acne, or if he is in a wheelchair, or what that might be. But when you can kind of take that personality of someone who is used to being able to accomplish whatever they want and put it into someone who can't, that is a really, really intriguing juxtaposition, and it creates a ton of conflict. I think for me, maybe like I was a teeniest bit confused kind of about the logic of this world. So it's clearly in the sci-fi fantasy realm. I love the name, The Immortal Exchange. But there's just a couple more details that I feel like would strengthen this. So a little bit more about Jake, and then B, what is Javier actually going to do to take over the world? So maybe just a slightly more detail there. But again, overall, I think you've really nailed the juxtaposition, and I think you've got characters that we'll want to follow.
All right. So folks, oh yeah, that was me changing things. I'm going to go ahead and have you go ahead and go to refresh the page, and you will see a new elevator pitch for you to review. And for anybody new arriving, you are going to be going to the link just a few in there, readychapter1.com.ep for elevator pitch. Fred, let's have you read this, and then we'll give him 30 seconds to vote.
Okay. No matter how hard 16-year-old Reverie Jones has tried to fit in, her ability to see auras has always left her feeling odd. And when a coffee date turns into a kidnapping, she is ushered into an underground society where dreams fuel magic and nightmares birth monsters. She must uncover what's drawing the monsters to her before they consume everything she loves.
All right. It's time for 30 seconds to vote.
Were we muted that whole time?
Didn't even comment. Need was so hard. We're unmuted now. And you I'm going to share this. All right, we're back and unmuted. Again, I thought I'd be better this time, but take it away, Fred.
Yeah, I think we should just leave it unmuted the whole time. I don't know why it mutes, but so yeah, okay. So let's talk about this one. The whole like so-and-so trying to fit in and not being able to fit in, that's kind of like one of these things that we see in tons and tons and tons of novels. So I feel like the thing that would make this stand out is when you can give us just a little bit more detail about who Reverie Jones is, what makes her different, what makes her special. Like the reason that most people read books is to see kind of themselves reflected on the page. And so that concept of not fitting in is almost almost promised for every interesting and intriguing character we're ever going to find. So my suggestion for this would be maybe instead of the trying to fit in angle, find a different angle to describe Reverie. But then it gets like really interesting right after that. So I feel like you have nailed it with the tone, with this very blockbuster esque kind of description of everything else after that. So I love the coffee date turns into a kidnapping. That's an awesome juxtaposition, right? So what do those two things have to do with each other? You don't expect that to happen. So I feel like you've really nailed that. And then being ushered into an underground society is an even more interesting twist. And I love the dreams fueling magic and nightmares birthing monsters. Like you've really, really nailed a lot of this. And then her job is to uncover what's drawing the monsters to her before they consume everything she loves. Again, like you set the stakes. There's room for more detail, and there's room for just some tweaking so that we engage a little bit more emotionally with these characters. But this is a really, really strong foundation for a pitch.
Perfect. And we've got all the information here. Ooh. All right. So, folks, in just a moment, I am going to have you refresh. This is what. Okay. All right. You should be able to refresh. I'm going to have Fred read it, and then we're going to go to 30 seconds. All right. And just checking to make sure we're not muted. Okay.
All right. When Bella plays basketball alone, she can score a slam dunk, but in front of a crowd, she stumbles and fumbles. Bella needs to get her thoughts back on the court or risk being benched forever. Oh, and this is a picture book. Okay. Mm-hmm. So and I don't know what the SEL stands for.
30 seconds to vote.
Okay, so first of all, I'm going to make sure I am unmuted, and I am. And I'm so happy that we have a picture book in this because picture books are very near and dear to my heart. I have illustrated 7, 8 picture books. I don't know how many at this point, but I love picture books, and I love the idea of Bella playing basketball. And I really, really like the idea of this almost stage fright of what Bella can do on her own versus what happens when she's in front of a crowd. So I think this is a really strong, it's a strong concept for a picture book. And I don't know, I hope everybody ranked it as though knowing that this was for a picture book. So this is typically a 32-page, 300 to 500 word story that's going to be for, 3 to 5-year-olds. So I think that this is it's a strong pitch. And I think the one thing I would want out of this is maybe a hint of what Bella's going to do. So Bella gets agency the same way that every character in every story gets agency, is when they make a decision and take an action based on that decision. So when Bella needs to get her thoughts back on the court or risk being benched forever, that's good. You've given us the stakes. And so if there's just if I could find one little twist, one little something that's going to give me a hint of how she is going to take action to overcome this, now I'm invested.
Nice. All right. I'm going to take this down and then paste this in. Folks, you should be able to refresh the page. Boom. Making sure we're unmuted. All right, go for it, and then we'll take 30 seconds.
Okay. After another shitty date, John vows next time will be different. Unfortunately, he didn't expect next time to involve a smart and sexy elf named Nip in a fantasy land he never knew existed. Now he must fight his attraction. Not only is Nip betrothed, but her marriage will strengthen the ever-weakening magic in Terra Fabula. Too bad Nip doesn't fight nearly as hard.
All right. 30 seconds, y'all. All right, here we go.
Okay, so first of all, I loved the Shannara Chronicles, which was like this really fun, sexy elf television show that had rock and roll music in it from back in the early 2000s, maybe.
It was CW, and we're talking about the television version, not the books,
right?
Which were hugely different.
So I am super intrigued by a fantasy world where we've got this kind of romance between humans and non-humans and whatever. So I'm 100% into this. I am looking for, I'm looking for maybe a little bit more in terms of what the inciting incident is here. So, another shitty date could be our inciting incident. But there's also, maybe it's that next date that really is the real inciting incident. So I'm curious as to what brought these two characters together. So did she dip into the real world to find him? Did he accidentally step through a portal to end up in an elf restaurant where he ran into her? So I think there's room to give a hint of the magic of your world in this, and I think that'll kind of strengthen that understanding of the inciting incident. And I'm also curious, I'm curious about the ever weakening magic in Terra Fabula, and I'm curious about this character Nip. I don't know, she seems like she's a real firecracker. So there's a lot of good here. I think you can strengthen that inciting incident. and I don't know, maybe just give us a little bit more, a couple more hints about the magic and what are the stakes? What does it mean if that magic does weaken and fall apart?
I like it. Okay. Nope, not that. Sorry, folks, I'm talking to myself. Okay, so it should be that if you refresh the page, and folks, we're going to do I'm going to say about 3 more. And then at the end, we'll have a giveaway for the Novel Academy. So yeah, I'd say about 3 or 4 more. Okay.
Get through as many as we can.
Yeah. And here is, refresh the page. We are unmuted. Go.
Okay. A farmer with IT expertise trapped in a paralyzing blizzard must outmaneuver a vengeful tech mogul and corrupt detective while preventing the AI he unleashed from turning a city's automated systems against its citizens. Okay. So I think this person gets the award for getting it all into a single sentence.
I know, right?
But seriously, I think this could be broken up into a couple of sentences. It felt a little, it felt like a mouthful when I was reading it all. But all the pieces are here, and that's what's the important part. So this feels like a modern twist on a sort of classic disaster film. So and sometimes I say film because a lot of times my brain thinks in terms of when your book gets turned into a movie. So forgive me for that. But I like the IT expert farmer. I think there's room maybe to, I don't know, strengthen that juxtaposition just a little bit. Is this an IT expert who has retired to become a farmer? Or, you know, how do those two things fit next to each other? I'm curious about that. But I love the being trapped in the paralyzing blizzard. I loved the vengeful tech mogul. And I do want to know a little bit more about the conflict between these two. Again, so we can talk about, I feel like there's room to talk about your inciting incident here, because in my brain, that inciting incident is what created the conflict between the vengeful tech mogul and the farmer with the IT expertise. It seems to me like that's something that you know, but it's for me as an editor or an agent, I want to know that right away as well. But you've got room to, you know, add a whole nother sentence if you want to, that adds just a little bit more to that. But overall, I feel like this is a strong pitch, and yeah, and I would definitely want to read more.
Nicely done. Okay. Nope, wrong thing. Just a sec.
And while she's getting these pasted in, I'm just going to say that pitching other writers is one of the most fun things you can do, especially at a writers conference, or especially if you've got a writers group, to just sit around and bounce pitches back and forth off each other, and then you'll kind of iterate and add on to what the other person has to say, and it just, like, it's such a fun thing to do anytime you can get together with other writers.
Agreed. All right, so folks, I'm going to have you refresh the page. Fingers crossed it works. You can read it, and then we'll cue the...
Punky Pixels is starting 6th grade at a new middle school. She's anxious about fitting in and doesn't want anyone to know that she is a secret animator and has her own YouTube channel. First, she gets teased by the gamer kids. Then she suspects the boys from the basketball team are stealing comic books from her dad's bookstore and isn't sure who she can trust.
All right, here we go.
Okay, so I actually know who this writer is, and I feel like I have had a couple of conversations. We've had probably 3 or 4 conversations about this, but I want to congratulate this person for continuing to iterate on their concept, and I want to talk really about the juxtaposition that really intrigues me, or the conflict that really intrigues me, and it's this whole concept of this middle schooler who loves to animate and whose dad has this comic book shop, and then she has kids start stealing from her dad's comic book shop, and that I feel like that's the setup for of conflict that is going to drive this whole story, because she's going to end up with this impossible choice. And this is again me making an assumption here, but the impossible choice of, do I support my dad and help him find the comic book thieves, or do I get to actually fit in my middle school by becoming one of the cool people and not saying anything about it? Or is there some sort of third solution that she ends up coming up with that solves everything in an interesting way? So I feel like this one has got that, it's got that conflict, it's got that tug on the heartstrings, especially as a parent. And so I think a lot of it is there. So maybe we didn't necessarily need about her starting 6th grade at a new middle school or being anxious about fitting in. I think if you were to just start with Punky Pixels doesn't want anyone to know that she's a secret animator and has her own YouTube channel when she starts at her new middle school. So I think you can kind of shorten that and abbreviate it just a little bit. But I don't know that I don't know that we need this series of events. First, she gets teased by the gamer kids, and then she suspects the boys from the basketball team. I think if you just say when she suspects that the boys from the basketball team are stealing comic books from her dad's bookstore, she'll have to choose between impossible choice 1 and impossible choice 2. And if you can kind of frame it like that, I think you'll end up with a really strong pitch.
Agreed. All right, folks, just checking. You should be able to, I'm going to remove this. You should be able to read the next. All right.
Okay.
Go for it.
In Pardon Our Ghosts, a retired teacher revives a small town hardware store only to discover it's haunted by restless spirits tied to a dark, forgotten past. As Halloween approaches and the hauntings intensify, Logan and his quirky team must confront the supernatural before it destroys the store and possibly himself.
All right. Okay, I'm going to say one more after this. We're unmuted. You're good to go. Thank you. There's no way.
Okay, this feels ready. I mean, this one to me has just kind of hit all of the marks. So I like the retired teacher and the small town hardware store. Like that gives me a really strong connection to this character. So because I know teachers, Sarah's a teacher, and I know small town life. So like again, I'm connected, I'm invested there, and then only to discover it's haunted by restless spirits tied to a dark forgotten past. Like all of that is just like story question after story question after story question, and so I'm hooked immediately. And then as this Halloween approaches and the hauntings intensify, like you're just escalating the stakes. It's like it's really well done. So if I were an editor or an agent and I read this pitch, I would 100% open your document and 100% get started on chapter 1, that's the goal, right? That's the goal of learning how to write a really strong elevator pitch, is that you're going to get that editor or that agent to say, ooh, I want to know more, send it to me. Or if you're pasting it into your email, into your query letter, then you want them to say, okay, I got to add this one to my to read list. And this one 100% hits the mark.
Agreed. All right. So, folks, you should be able to Okay. I'm going to remove this guy. Refresh the page. All right.
All right. Oh boy, I'm going to pronounce this wrong and I apologize. Anjana joins the Cricket Academy, but as she navigates being the only girl on her team, a teammate who thinks she got chosen because her dad is a famous cricketer and a coach's restrictive and demanding attitude, she'll need to find a way to not let these obstacles drag her down or stop playing the game she loves.
All right.
Okay, so this one felt a little bit of a mouthful to me. Like I found myself stumbling on my words a couple of times here, and I think it's because some of these things, like she'll need to find a way to not let these obstacles drag her down. There's some double negatives going on there. But so I'm intrigued. I'm a sports fan. I'm intrigued by cricket. I don't know a ton about it, and so I feel like a book about Cricket Academy to me sounds like a lot of fun, and that's something I would definitely want to read more about. And she's the only girl on her team. And that almost got lost. So I would almost lead with that. As the only girl on her team at the cricket or on the team at the Cricket Academy, Anjana, experiences this. And I think you've got some great stuff in there about being chosen because her dad's a famous cricketer. But again, there's so many details in this that I got just a little bit lost. So maybe you could focus on a particular incident that kind of sets this whole thing into motion. And if it is her being chosen to go on to the team, if that's the inciting incident that kind of sets the whole story in motion, then maybe just kind of frame this pitch around that. So, when the whole school is shocked because Anjana is the first girl to ever be chosen for the cricket, for the cricket team, then the rest of the players think that only happened because of her dad, and which caused this, and this to happen. So I feel like it's just a little bit of reframing, but the pieces are there. And again, I think just needs a little rewrite.
Agreed. All right. So you should be able to refresh the page.
All right. This is going to be
This is our last one.
Okay.
Okay. Take it away.
All right. Joy McCoy and Tom Alexander meet in fall 1941 at their KY college. When each mistakenly assumes the other is in love with someone else, Tom and Joy maintain distance despite their mutual attraction. Then America enters World War II. Tom enlists and Joy fears they've lost contact forever. Will words or war separate them?
Dun, dun, dun.
All right, folks. So for this one, I feel like this is a very easy to understand concept. This is a kind of a possible love lost at wartime kind of story, and those have been done. But so I think that what the opportunity that you have here is to introduce just a little bit of twist either into the plot line or into who these characters are, dive a little deeper into that character development, so that we really get a so that we kind of get hooked on the people in the story, because in a lot of these wartime stories, it's what makes that character different, what makes them interesting, what makes them unexpected, that really draws us in. So who was Joy and who was Tom before, before they kind of went into wartime? And so even if it's just, piano player Joy McCoy and guitarist Tom Alexander, that's going to be one type of story. Or if it's, swimming sensation Joy and referee Tom, like whoever you make these people is really going to define that story. And the deeper you dive into each of those characters, the more intriguing it's going to be.
All right. Okay, folks. So I'm going to thank you for your patience with us. Thank you for listening. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to go ahead and give away a slot in Novel Academy. So a couple things that I want you to do. I want you to go back to, and let me go ahead and put this up here. I want you to go, I want you to go to this page here. And then I have a web of cords, and poor Fred almost got stuck in them. Okay, so go to this web page here. It is going to be the page that you have seen before, but I've switched the form up a little bit. So what you're going to do is you are going to, in the portion that says, click here to submit your elevator pitch, the orange button, I want you to click on that. The form should be different, and there should be a place for your name and email. So I'm going to have everyone go ahead, take a sec, put that in there, and then I'll do a random number generator on the people who have entered it, and we should be good. And I see that I have a comment. I'll tell him you said bye, William. Okay, so I think we're good. So I'm going to give you guys about a minute, and I'm just checking to make sure that I am getting all the information I need. Is anybody having any trouble? So if you would like to be put in the drawing for a slot in our Novel Academy, you can go ahead, go to this website, and you're going to click on the orange button. And then what I'm going to do real quick, I'm beginning to see a couple of these slide in. So we're actually going to do 2 drawings for this. So I'd like us to, what we'll be doing is we'll be drawing for one slot that's a giveaway, and then we'll be drawing for a second slot that is half price. And I will send that person a coupon for that. So yes, I can drop that link in the chat. And Gina, it's the exact same link that's a little bit that I did before. So if you go back to that page in that link, let's see. You'll be able to click on the orange button, and it says to put your elevator pitch in there, but I've changed the form and you'll be able to put in your name and email address. So we should be good with that. I'm going to give you guys a couple more, about 30 more seconds to go ahead and put those in. And I'm trying to keep an eye on the comments to see how that goes. Okay, all good. So really quickly, I'm just going to share this with you real quick because it gives me something to do besides stare at a screen and wonder if I'm unmuted or not. So RC1's Novel Academy, this is going to be 5 months long. My teacher self is excited about this. You're going to be going from concept to query. So ironing out the ideation in your work and then getting it set to query. One of the super things I'm excited about is you're going to be expanding your author toolkit. And this continues for me from forever, but I still remember early when I was beginning to take classes, workshops through conferences, those moments where I would have sections in my writing that worked, but I didn't know why they worked. They were just sort of these moments of magic in my manuscript. And when you get to the point where you can deliberately use tools to give you what you want, that's kind of a cool feeling. So when we talk about expanding your author toolkit, that's really what we're talking about. We're going to have a ton of meetings, a ton of ways for you to get together with people, just so that you can expand your network, which is huge. Polish your stories. You're going to be getting a lot of feedback, which I'm excited about. And then you're going to have a one-on-one agent meeting, which I am also super excited about. Like we've been pulling people, but we'll be looking for folks who can give you feedback on your first 10 pages. Okay, I'm going to do about 10 seconds more to get any more things. And then I am going to be, I already have my random number generator pulled up. And I'm going to say this every single time that we do a giveaway. We have friends, one who has a drone training business, and he said that giveaways are the worst part for him. And I am so grateful to be working with people who are like generally kind. Okay, so I have not seen a new email come through. So I am looking at things from 23 through 39. The numbers are looking pretty good, folks. And I'm going to do a quick check to make sure I don't have any repeats. All right. Random number generated is 3. All right. And the winner I have for this is Leslie Howard. So Leslie Howard, I've got you highlighted for our win. You happen to be number 33 in our slot. And then I'm going to go ahead and do one more random number generation. 94, and this is going to be our person who gets half price. All right, 24 is Frankie Sutton. So Frankie, I will email you a half price off coupon for Ready Chat or for Novel Academy. You can think about it. You don't have to make a decision right away, but if you want to, you'll be able to use that through next Tuesday. And folks, thank you so much for coming. We've loved hearing your pitches. Fred, this is where we're different. Fred was talking about how cool it is to swap pitches with writers. It still makes me like a little squidgy in my stomach. I'm not going to lie. But for those of you who are brave enough to put your pitches out there, great job. We loved being able to hear them, and have a wonderful evening. And if you are, let me think, if you are interested in Novel Academy, want to learn a little bit more, if you go to the website that we had, let's see, readychapter1.com EP, and you click the header there, it'll actually tell you a little bit more about Novel Academy, and you can email me. I'm going to be more than happy. I'll put my email in here right now. I'm more than happy to ask questions or answer questions or ask them. I can do all of the things, except maybe unmute myself on a regular basis. Okay. That's my email in there if you have any questions. And again, y'all, thank you for coming. It was awesome. And we will see you next time we do this. Take care. All right.